My name is David Oakes and I am an actor, environmentalist and an ambassador for the Wildlife Trusts. And I am out on a windy day on the Isle of Man, standing precariously on a cliffside to talk to Leigh Morris, the Chief Executive of the Manx Wildlife Trust. Hello, Leigh.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Isle of Man.
It's good to be here. We've got some seals over there, over my right shoulder. So where are we? Where am I standing?
We are at the southern tip of the Isle of Man. This is the Calf Sound behind us.
So what's going on here? What projects have you got working on this part of the island?
Well, the first thing with the Calf of Man is where the bird observatory is. And Manx Wildlife Trust, we've got a team of wardens on the Calf who are doing really important work in terms of surveying birds, but also in conservation projects in bringing some really important bird species back to the island.
And one of the new projects you've started over the last year is getting the MOTUS scheme going here, so you can keep a track of the birds coming and going and seeing what they're doing.
So the MOTUS tracking system is used actually all around the world, but we don't know of any receiver in the Irish Sea, bizarrely. So we're going to put a MOTUS, and that will immediately allow us to start hopefully tracking birds that have already got pingers on them, and then we're looking to start adding our own tags to birds that we net in the calf that we can start to monitor. And the first one on the list is actually wheatears.
Okay.
Wheatears and blackcaps were the first two targets, but the potential in terms of where we are in the Irish Sea for some of the seabirds, the big seabirds, maybe it's great blackback gulls, cormorant movements, we can actually then start to track how those birds move around. And we're hoping we might inspire England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, Republic of Ireland, to also start putting MOTUS receivers around the Irish Sea.
That'd be amazing. Track everything as it goes all the way around. So, Leigh, we've come up the east coast of the island a little bit, up from the Calf. Where are we now?
We're now on Fort Island, which is a tiny little islet joined on by a causeway over there to the Langness Peninsula, which is an ASSI, an Area of Special Scientific Interest. And behind us is the beautiful Derby Haven Bay. There was rumours of seagrass in Derby Haven Bay. We've found 5 different patches of seagrass out here now, but I don't think we've got halfway across the bay. And it's such an important project for the island now in terms of our blue carbon.
For those that don't know, what's so important about seagrass and kelp and the like?
Seagrass, it's the only true plant that lives under the water, flowering plant. It's really important for carbon sequestration. It's also really important as a habitat for biodiversity. So it's a nursery ground, you get all sorts of critters and things that live in there. So it's not currently designated a seagrass area. I think one of the things that we want to do as a wildlife trust that I'm keen to see that we do is that we get those accurate plots of where the seagrass beds are, and then we can give that information into the Isle of Man government and look to get this as a designated area of seagrass, which will then have a higher level of protection.
One of the things you mentioned very briefly was blue carbon. Can you explain what that is in more depth?
We want to sequester carbon, we want to lock carbon up to mitigate against climate change. Seagrass is one form of blue carbon. You know, the seagrass itself, the detritus and everything else that builds up in the rooting zone around the rhizomes will lock carbon up for a long time. And then beyond that, you've got the blue carbon that's just in the seabed, you know, all those millions of years of life where carbon has just fallen onto the floor of the sea. It's held in there and it builds up.
As well as just being a good way to sequester carbon, there's also methane deposits that are kept down by dense layers of vegetation and not to mention even the photosynthesis that a lot of algae and seagrasses actually do to create oxygen for the planet. As the Manx Wildlife Trust, how much of your focus is on the island and how much of your focus is around the island?
Actually, the bulk of the Isle of Man's, if you like, property is in the marine environment that surrounds it. And we're also a complete whole nation, so we can work with the marine department at our government. But you know, we're a small island. How does that influence the big world? Well, I've been really excited since I joined the Wildlife Trust a couple and a half years ago that synchronicity is that there's now a conversation and an Irish Sea group. So England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, both islands with us are now at the table talking about the Irish Sea in a strategic way about, we're not suddenly going to change the world, but we are sharing issues and even to know that the same issues around seagrass or industrialisation or climate change, because we all care about the birds and the basking sharks and the fish. And if we can share a little bit of that, and then maybe we're now to the next level where we're coming out with a joint vision for the Irish Sea. We want to be absolutely about the Isle of Man, but we don't want to be insular. We've got an important role to play in the British Isles.